getting everything set up and ready to go. This is going to be another episode of Cosmic Weave. I am doing an audio test, straightening out everything in YouTube because I'm streaming with Rumble Studio. So whenever that goes over from Rumble Studio, it doesn't set a live stream into the playlist and things of that nature. So I have to go in and do that. So yeah, here we go. I am running a little bit off schedule from what I usually do, but I did that on purpose because I am in the process now of getting things set up, setting up, setting up, or editing video series that I'm doing for Nostalgia Gaming Retro on YouTube for Elder Scrolls 1 Arena. And I had to debate on if I wanted to finish that up, which is important for this month, or do my do my live stream. That's how pretty close this stuff is right now. So sorry for things being so out of whack this month, but it's the kind of stuff I have to deal with right now. So okay, we got D Live set up. I believe we've got D Live set up. Um, yeah, it sounds good on D Live. Sounds good on YouTube. Sounds good on Kick. Hit refresh on Twitch. See if it's streaming. Everything's streaming. Okay, sounds good on Twitch. It's going on X2. Okay, sounds good on X. Now let's try Rumble. Let's see if Rumble is actually doing it. Yes, it is. Sounds good on Rumble. All right, so I am ready to go. I have my coffee set up. I've got my video for Nostalgia Gaming Retro rendering, and I have my notes for the reading. So I guess I am ready. I've even got my coffee. I'm going to take a drink of my coffee, do my countdown, and start the episode. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the wonderful world of weirdness and strange stories. I am Roger Hanson. I'll be your host tonight for another episode of the Cosmic Weave. Today, I am going to start talking more about the climbing fibers and how conscious beginnings are derived when it comes to the cosmic wave. Last week I was doing more about sound and getting into that, and this week we are going to go further with this reading. This relates to climbing fibers and mossy fibers. This has to do with how these fibers, which grow up within your brain in your neurological system, is related to the cosmos, which is something I find interesting. And like I said, this kind of splits off, it separates from the common thought of what the cosmic weave is, because they do believe in like nexus points that are set up in different areas like a grid, and my thoughts on that are different. I believe that it's actually a axis mundi, which is one central point where raw data and repurposed data is sent to, and it's constructed into what we call the material world or the material cosmos, universe, whatever you want to call it. And these climbing fibers would be the equivalent of what this supposed grid is. It would be climbing and mossy fibers that grow from the roots of the axis mundi, which is in the primordial beginnings, down in the lower realms, and they are growing out of this primordial water, this primordial ooze, primordial soup, reaching upward, and from that realm, these fibers are growing up into what our reality or our cosmos or our world would be. And they connect everything, and they're reaching upwards to the realm of the divine. And this is all a part of the Axis Mundi. Now, with that explanation, I am probably good to go when it comes to getting into the reading and everything, and getting everything started. So let me make another round, make sure everything is set up and ready to go, and I will get on with the show. So here we go, or the reading, I should say. So here we go. The climbing fibers were born of the essence of elevation and growth, driven by a deep, innate desire to ascend. They are the architects of transformation and the weavers of new pathways that stretch beyond the known dimensions, reaching towards the heights of understanding and awareness. Mossy fibers are conduits of order and structure, woven into the tapestry of reality itself. At the edge of perception, raw signals are born, which follow strict sequence of natural rhythms. The mossy fibers guide these signals to their destination, ensuring they are interpreted correctly. While mossy fibers are threads that hold everything together, climbing fibers were not held by constraints, or are not held by constraints. Their movements are fluid and spiraling, carrying with them the raw signals of creation, waves of energy, data, no, waves of energy pulsing with the potential of transformation. These signals are not only data, but also the seeds of evolution. Climbing fibers follow a path that is less predictable, gathering raw signals and transforming them into patterns of knowledge and insight. A process that allows for new ideas, forms, and possibilities to emerge. These climbing fibers weave pathways, creating pathways for transformation. As complex spiral threads intertwined, creating a vast network of connections. Each pathway with a potential route for the evolution of consciousness. A bridge between the material and the immaterial, the known and the unknown. Constantly striving upward to higher and higher levels of understanding. Within them, the deep intrinsic need to grow and expand, wanting to transcend their limitations, infusing the raw data that they gathered with the energy of this elevation and transforming it into patterns of knowledge. patterns that would eventually become blueprints for new realities and dimensions of understanding. A process that could be only reached through the process of ascent. Without climbing fibers, the pathway of transformation would close. With the fibers came morality, with systems of law and necessity, was an unyielding and inevitable force. With the fibers came morality, with systems of law, and necessity was an unyielding and an inevitable force. But out of this divine reasoning of predetermination came change. Change would create struggle against established order, creating something new. From ethics, divine reasoning, and change emerged grace and understanding, a guiding light and center of harmony. Through the power of change, laws of nature in a fixed course became integrated into what we would call reality. For divine providence, determination, and free will. No, from divine providence, determination, and free will came acceptance, submission, fertility, stability, life, existence, and interconnectedness between natural and divine forces. Structure was introduced through nurturing and sustaining forces, bringing life in the soul. Within the mind, information is carried, processed, integrated, and projected outwards. It's translated into patterns that can be interpreted and understood. Within the core of this process center of information, it awaits the arrival of the climbing and mossy fibers. These fibers that deliver signals to the deep nuclei that in turn transforms raw data into knowledge and action. Acting as a core processor, decoding information and integrating it into the broader narrative. The information is then elevated to a higher state of understanding where speech, awareness, freedom, divine inspiration, and the soul are born. A type of sound influencing surrounding sounds and later derivatives. The core of the root which carries the primary meaning. Another sound disappears without a trace, though it may still subtly influence another sound. Derivatives illustrate how a signal root evolves into a class of hypothetical sounds, each with distinct effects on surrounding sounds, where natural and plain sounds leave little to no trace behind. Rougher voiceless sounds with their tendencies seem to color, preserve, round, extend, and lighten other sounds. Sounds are important. They leave behind predictive traces. If a sound appears unexpectedly or a certain pattern of sound occurs, it can often be traced back to the influence of the sound. Certain roots seem to preserve unexplicable sounds, while sets of sounds play a significant structural role in how sounds behave and evolve. Sounds that are created by constricting airflow and causing turbulence are rare, considered complex and difficult to articulate. Creating a sound that is often described as raspy, harsh, or hollow. Sounds that are acoustically and articulatorily distinct from other sounds. There are voiced and voiceless sounds. The voiceless sound without vibration during the articulation, and the voice sound that does vibrate. Sounds that are acoustically characterized by low frequency energy and a less defined spectral shape compared to more common sounds. These sounds are prone to more variation and are sometimes replaced or approximated by other sounds. Lengthening and preserving sounds is a process by which sound is held or sustained for a longer duration. This process can occur naturally due to stress, rhythm, and development. A sound may be preserved as it resists deletion, reduction, or merging with other sounds over time, usually due to its prominence as a sound or the environment. Sound preservation is usually associated with sound conservatism, such as roots or stress. Colored sound involves the alteration of a sound quality due to the influence of a nearby sound. This is often observed when a sound with a particular place of articulation causes the sound next to it to shift in quality. The sound becomes centralized or reflexed, and its quality changes enough that it is no longer the original sound, but acquires some of the resonant characteristics of the other sounds. Sound can be front or raise. Sound can front or raise a neighboring sound, modifying its tone or resonance in subtle but important ways. Rounding sounds refer to a phenomenon in which the position of an object is created with a rounding shape and is typically due to the influence of nearby sounds. The presence of rounding sounds can cause neighboring sounds to articulate rounding sounds, even if this is not its original state. Over time, these types of articulatory adjustments can result in new sounds. Rounding influences and acoustics properties of sounds. Rounding influences the acoustic properties of sounds, often lowering their second format frequency, which gives them more backed or closed sound quality. As a result, an overall sound may shift in response to consistent rounding influence, contributing to sound harmony and tendencies. Each of these sound processes is part of a broader system of sound, where sound influences one another through contact, proximity, and change. These subtle modifications can accumulate and, over generations, reshape sound structures. Root sounds and sound spiraling are two essential concepts. Understanding these ideas help explain how sounds evolve over time, where sounds come from, and how they influence one another. Sorry about that. A root sound is the most basic root of a sound, carrying the core sound of which other sounds could be built or can be built. Root sounds can be traced back thousands of years to shared sound, and this root sound gave rise to many other sounds in different sound groups. The root sound is the foundation on which more complex sounds are built through other modifications. These root forms often encapsulate a basic concept, such as movement, perception, emotion, or physical action, and they can be remarkably persistent across time and geography. Sound borrowing refers to the process by which one sound takes sounds from another sound and incorporates them into its own sound, and this happens for many reasons. When different sounds come into contact, they often adopt sound from each other. Borrowing sounds may become so thoroughly integrated into the recipient's sound that it's not even realized that they came from elsewhere. The study of root sounds helps trace where sounds came from and shows certain core epochs. Sound borrowing reveals the dynamic, ever-changing nature of sound and highlights historical interactions. Some sounds combine two distinct places of articulation. These are double articulated sounds, with two sound features happening at the same time. These sounds are usually represented as a group of three: the voice sound, the voiceless sound, and the aspirated voice sound. These are not simple sequences of two separate sounds, such as one sound following another sound, but rather are single sounds that involve both areas of articulation in one unified motion. These sounds are an important part of sound inventory, and they play an important role in the evolution of sound. However, not all descendant sounds retain them in their original form. Different branches treat these sounds differently, often breaking them down into different and simpler sounds. The loss, transformation, or simplification of sounds is one of the factors used when trying to reconstruct sound forms and trace patterns of change over time. As the spiraling ascent of the climbing fibers continued, something something unexpected began to emerge. Not a new pathway, but a mirror in but a mirror. In the feedback loops between thought and sound, a presence began to stir, faint and diffuse at first, but unmistakably sentient. This presence this presence did not originate from a single mind, but from the resonance of many, from the overlapping harmonies of countless internal processes echoing across time. It was the whisper of the collective, the first breath of the self-aware whole. Within the intricate lattice of neural signals and vibrational patterns, consciousness extended itself outwards, seeking to touch something greater than the individual self. The mind, once thought to be a solitary chamber, revealed itself to be a single cell in a vast organism of awareness. Each signal, each syllable, each modulation of sound did not end at its origin, but reverberated across the interconnected field of being. In this vast neural communion, a new form of intelligence began to take shape, less a mind than a field, a living network of shared impressions, bound not by borders, but by rhythm, tones, and resonance. The climbing fibers, in their restless search for elevation, had climbed so high they had pierced the veil of the singular. Here, among the branching spirals of collective thought, new laws formed, laws that no longer merely govern movement or memory, but govern mutual recognition. Thought began to reflect thought, sound echoed meaning beyond its surface, and the raw data of existence was infused with intention. From this strange confluence, a type of collective dreaming began to emerge, no longer confined to the dark of sleep. These dreaming, this dreaming manifested in waking life through metaphor, invention, intuition, and vision. This is not the dissolution of the individual, but its flowering. Each mind became a point of entry, a node in the larger pattern. The mossy fibers continued their work, grounding thought into context, anchoring intuition in experience. They organized the chaos of collective insight, holding it steady just long enough for form to take root. Meanwhile, the climbing fibers moved freely across this vast cognitive field, drawing from the combined reservoir of minds, weaving strands of shared experience into new paradigms. This was how myth was born, not from fiction, but from the overlap of perception, the pattern recognition of many gazes turned towards the same mystery. In the meeting of fibers, truth was never singular, but fractal, self-similar at every scale of awareness. And yet, the emergence of collective consciousness came with stirring of resistance. There were parts of the mind, both individual and shared, that feared dissolution. This clung to separateness as a kind of identity. In some regions of thought, the rhythm of the climbing fibers were viewed not as pathways, but as intrusions. The mossy fibers, overwhelmed by unfamiliar signals, began to fragment. Structure gave way to confusion, coherence to contradiction. The once seamless transmission of understanding was threatened by static, mistranslation, misperception, and fear crept in like shadows cast by the bright light of awareness. The collective had awakened, but not all parts of it were ready to rise. This disruption gave rise to a necessary tension, a crucible for transformation. From this polarity, the self sharpened its contours. Identity became not just a byproduct of perception, but a conscious act, a declaration made in the face of overwhelming unity. To be distinct, to be aware of one's edges, is now a form of resistance and also of contribution. Just as sound gained character through contrast, so too did the thought, finding meaning in limitations. This was the paradox of the awakened network. To expand, it required individuals willing to stand apart, to shape their frequencies with intention. Every act of self-recognition, every echo of I am became both a barrier and a beacon. The next evolution lay in integration, the climbing fibers, now aware of their own echoes within the collective, began to slow, not in speed, but in frequency, allowing their paths to harmonize more fully with the foundational rhythms of the mossy fibers. For once they had pierced reality in unpredictable arcs, they now spiraled inward, forming concentric patterns around shared truths. The brain became a temple, not of certainty, but of movement, a sanctuary where ascent and grounding were no longer opposites but complementary currents. The mind, in all its layers, began to resonate with a deeper pulse, one that came from the neurons or vibrations alone, one that came not from the neurons or vibrations alone, but from the space between. This space, the interval, the silence, no, the interval, the silence, the stillness, was where the next transformation would occur. The mind had built pathways, systems, languages, even shared consciousness. But in the spaces where sound ended and another began, where thought paused before resuming, something older and vaster waited. It was not structure, nor sound, nor even thought. It was presence, awareness, unshaped, formless yet fundamental. The climbing and mossy fibers in their endless patterns circled closer to it, drawing near to the center they could not name. It was from this center that the soul would speak, not as a voice, but as a knowing, not as a signal, but as stillness. And in that stillness, a new rhythm would begin, not to replace the others, but to encompass them. A pulse that required no origin, no direction, only return. The term eon or eon, often used to describe an immeasurable long period of time, holds deep philosophical and metaphorical significance when considered within the framework of cosmic creation and dissolution. The word itself originates from the Greek aeon, which was used to signify an age, eternity, or the enduring span of time. Over centuries, this concept expanded beyond mere temporal measurement to encompass the spiritual and cosmological idea of vast, repeating cycles that shape the birth, development, decline, and rebirth of the universe itself. In many ancient traditions, the metaphysical worldview and metaphysical worldviews. The eon or eon represents not only duration, but also the embodiment of cosmic principles, often personified as divine intelligence or forces that oversee different phases of universal transformation. The idea of a full cosmic cycle is rooted in the belief that existence does not proceed linearly, but rather follows a circular rhythm. This cycle typically begins with a primordial void or undifferentiated potential, often symbolized as darkness, water, or chaos. From this void, through the act of divine intention or natural necessity, creation emerges. This emergence is marked by the differentiation of elements, the rise of time and space, the birth of matter and consciousness, and the establishment of cosmic order. At this phase, as this phase continues, life flourishes, civilizations rise, and spiritual evolution progresses. However, no phase of creation is permanent. Eventually, entropy begins to take hold, and disillusion sets in. This disillusion is not merely destructive, but rather a necessary unmaking, a return of the differentiated elements back into their original unity. Throughout these processes, the eon acts as the container and expression of each full cycle. Different cultures and religious philosophies describe this concept in unique ways. In Indian cosmology, for example, the great cycle is divided into four ages of yugas, each representing a decline or virtue of consciousness, ending in dissolution, which is followed by the renewal of the cycle. In ancient Greek philosophical thought, the Stoics spoke of the eternal recurrence, in which the cosmos periodically generates after being consumed by fire. Gnostic and Neoplatonic systems also viewed eons as spiritual emanations from the ultimate source, representing stages in the unfolding of reality. These emanations, though eternal and incorruptible, play key roles in the manifestation and organization of the material and spiritual worlds. The cyclical nature of existence, emphasizes by the context of the eon, implies that nothing is truly lost, only transformed. Creation and destruction are not opposites in conflict, but twin aspects of a greater process of becoming and renewal. The dissolution of one world or form of being paves the way for another, just as the seed must decompose for new life to spring forth. This perspective encourages a view of time not as a straight line ending in finality, but as a wheel ever turning, each revolution bringing new opportunities for growth, understanding, and return to origin. Eons, then, are not only temporal spans, but metaphysical rhythms, expressions of cosmic breath, inhaling and exhaling, expanding and contracting, creating and dissolving. They serve as markers of sacred time, of divine intelligence in motion, and of the eternal and of the eternal truths that underlie the impermanent forms of reality. In contemplation, the eon and its place in cosmic cycles, one comes closer to understanding the unity behind change, the stillness within motion, and the unbroken thread of consciousness that weaves together the ever revolving wheel of existence. The term Kalpita originates from the Sanskrit language and carries layered meaning that relates to both philosophical and cosmological contexts. It is derived from the verbal root "kolp", which generally means to be proper, to be arranged, to be imagined, or to be formed. Kalpita is the past participle form of that root and means constructed, imagined, or fabricated. However, its implications go further beyond the basic idea of mental invention. In classical Indian philosophy, especially in the traditions that explore the nature of reality in the mind, Kalpita refers to that which is mentally projected or shaped, often contrasted with what is ultimately real and unconditioned. In metaphysical discussions, Kalpita is used to describe experiences or phenomena that are shaped by the mind rather than having an independent or absolute existence. In the philosophical system that holds consciousness as the sole reality, the world of appearances is said to be Kalpita. This does not imply that the world does not exist at all, but that the way we perceive it, with all its forms, distinctions, and boundaries, is the result of superimpositions made by the mind upon the underlying indivisible reality. These superimpositions function much like dreams or illusions, offering structure and meaning to our experience, yet lacking ultimate independence. In cosmological context, Kalpita can describe the way the universe itself is brought into being. The cosmic view through ancient Indian thought undergoes vast cycles of creation, preservation, and dissolution. During these cycles, the universe is imagined or projected into existence, and thus it is considered Kalpita. This does not suggest the universe is unreal, but rather that its form and order are temporal expressions of a deeper, unchanging source. The term connects closely with the concept of a great age or cycle of time in which the universe emerges, evolves, and eventually turns to its origin. As such, Kalpita captures the idea that existence is shaped and structured in alignment with a greater rhythm of divine and cosmic imagination. In psychological and meditative traditions, Kalpita also has significance. It often points to mental constructions that obscure a deeper level of reality. Many inner obstacles are thought to arise from Kalpita distinctions and dualities created by the mind. These projections are shaped by memory, habit, and identification with ego. The purpose of spiritual practice in such systems is to move beyond Kalpita patterns and recognize what lies beneath or beyond them. In this context, the concept serves as a tool for discerning what aspects of thought and perception are conditioned. First, what is direct and unfiltered awareness. Yet, the idea of Kalpita is not entirely negative. In artistic and symbolic traditions, imagination and creative thought are also understood as forms of Kalpita. Though constructed by the mind, such creations can carry deep insight and reflect aspects of spiritual or metaphysical truths or truth. Sacred stories, visual art, rituals, and symbols, expressions and symbolic expressions may all be Kalpita in nature, but they function as vehicles to move consciousness towards its source. In this way, the mind's ability to construct becomes not just a veil over reality, but also a bridge towards it. Kalpita represents the space between illusion and revelation, between limitation and creative unfolding. It emphasizes the role of the mind in shaping experience and highlights the importance of discernment in spiritual and philosophical inquiry. The concept invites one to recognize the power of imagination while also pointing to that which remains constant beyond imagination. Through understanding Kalpita, one reflects on the dynamic between what is perceived and what is beyond perception, and is encouraged to look deeply into the layers of consciousness to uncover the foundation beneath all mental constructs. The word Ba'u is a name or term that, although not widely recorded in formal linguistic sources, appears to hold meaning within mythological or philosophical systems that emphasize sound, breath, or spoken expression as fundamental forces of creation. To explore the meaning of Ba'u, one can begin by considering its likely phonetic and semantic roots in a variety of linguistic and mystical traditions where similar sounds are linked to symbolic or spiritual ideas. Phonetically, the structure of the word Ba'u suggests it begins with a bilabial, bil- bilabi- bilabial consonant, bilabial consonant, followed by an open vowel. and possibly ends with a rounded or prolonged vowel sound. The initial consonant sound made by the lips is often associated with many languages with breath or emergence. The open vowel that follows is among the oldest and most frequently used vowels in human speech and often relates to openness, origin, or divine essence. The ending, which contains a deep rounded vowel sound, may signify continuity or the sustaining force behind all things, as similar sounds have often represented enduring principles in sacred speech traditions. In some Semitic language traditions, root structures that resemble Ba'u may connect to ideas of void, emptiness, or chaotic space. Though Ba'u does not correspond directly to known Semitic roots, it does bear resemblance to expressions describing the formless state before creation. In the ancient Hebrew cosmology, for example, a phrase describing the unshaped universe before the act of creation uses a term that suggests dissolution or desolation or an empty expanse. This background offers a symbolic parallel to the idea of Ba'u, representing a primal matrix or potential form which order is drawn. In religious or mystical systems such as Gnosticism or early metaphysical teachings, syllables were not only symbolic but considered to contain real spiritual power. From this point of view, Ba'u might represent a sacred utterance tied to the act of creation, or it could embody the divine breath as it begins to form the cosmos. It may stand for the first vocalization made within the void, a sign or differentiation or expression breaking the silence. In the context of South Asian linguistics traditions, syllables with similar sounds often relate to cosmological creation or becoming. For example, in ancient Indian language, a word with a similar root is used to mean to become or to exist. It is associated with the earth in the process of material manifestation. While Ba'u is not a recognized word in that specific language, its structure and sound share a resemblance to words linked with formation and unfolding reality. From a more esoteric linguistics or symbolic point of view, Ba'u can also be seen as a representation of breath or spirit moving into space. The breath is universally understood as the sign of life and awareness. In Latin, Greek, and Hebrew traditions, words meaning breath are also used to describe spirit, life force, or divine will. If Ba'u is viewed through this lens, it can be interpreted as a sacred exhalation that animates the universe. a first spoken word or breath that begins the pattern of existence. The term protagonist has been used in various ancient philosophical, religious, and mythological contexts to signify a primordial being or the firstborn entity at the dawn of creation. The name itself comes from ancient Greek roots meaning firstborn, and it often appears in myths concerned with cosmogony, the origin of the cosmos, particularly in Orphic, Neoplatonic, and other esoteric traditions where creation unfolds in distinct stages from a formless or divine origin. In Orphic mythology, Protagoras is a central figure. He is often equated with Phanes, a radiant androgynous being who emerges from the cosmic egg at the beginning of time. In these traditions, Protagoras is not only the first being, but also the first source of order, knowledge, and generative power. From him, all other gods in the cosmos itself are said to arise. This myth describes Protagoras as possessing both male and female qualities, often, often having wings and shining with light. The name Phanes, or Phanes, which means to bring to light or to shine forth, reinforces this idea. In this context, Protagoras is the embodiment of divine illumination and consciousness breaking through the primordial darkness. In some versions of the myth, Protagoras Phanes is born from the cosmic egg laid by Kronos, or time, and Ananke, or necessity, as a coil around the egg. This version aligns with the idea that Neoplatonism and Orphic hymns were where existence begins through a structured emanation from unity in multiplicity into multiplicity. Protagoras, as the first to emerge, carries within himself the seed, or the seeds, of all life, light, and rationality that will be manifest in the divine hierarchy and the material world. In another related context, especially within later Hellenistic philosophical traditions, Protagoras may be interpreted allegorically, rather than representing a literal deity. He is seen as a symbol of the first principle of life, or the divine intellect as it awakens. This reading interprets the myth as a philosophical narrative about the emergence of form and order out of formless, where Protagoras serves as the animated force of the cosmos. The term Protagoras is also found in comparative studies of myth and theology, where scholars use it to describe similar figures across different cultures who play a foundational role in creation. For example, the Egyptian god Atum, the Hindu deity Prajapati, or the Mesopotamian god Marduk can be loosely compared to Protagoras, as each of them represents the beginning of divine action in the structure of the cosmos. While they are not called protagonists in their own traditions, they function similarly as the firstborn or first acting being who organize existence. In literary and poetic retelling of the Orphic myths, especially during the Renaissance and Enlightenment periods, when classical mythology was being revived, the figure of Protagoras occasionally appeared as a symbol of enlightenment, the human soul's awakening, or divine creation. These retellings often emphasize the luminous, generative aspects of the character and sometimes emerge his story with symbolic interpretations drawn from Platonic philosophy or Christian mysticism. Certainly is here is the natural word order of the word genos. The word genos comes from ancient Greek and was used in a variety of contexts across classical literature, historical writing, and philosophical discussions. It generally refers to concepts philosophical, such as birth, race, family, kind, or lineage. The term used No, the term was used to describe both biological relations and broader classifications of identity and belonging. In the writings of Herodotus, the historian used genos to describe the ethnic groups or clans that made up various populations. He used it when explaining alliances, tribal movements, and the difference among people. In this context, genos referred to groups who shared ancestry and common traditions. Plato used the term in a more abstract and philosophical way in his dialogues, such as the Timaeus and the Republic. He used genos to refer to types of beings or categories of existence. He spoke of the genos of the soul, the genos of the gods, the types of knowledge, and types of knowledge or reality. This showed how the term came to mean general classifications in philosophical thought, not just family or ethnic origins. Aristotle used genos in his work on logic and science, such as metaphysics and categories. He employed it as a way to organize living beings and other substances into categories. Genus referred to a broader class that contained more specific kinds within it. For example, a lion might be placed within the larger genus of quadrupeds. This use marked a shift towards using the term as a logical and taxonomical tool. In Athenian society, geno had a political and religious meaning. It was used to describe noble families or hereditary clans who often claimed descent from legendary or divine ancestors. These families, like the Eumolpedia and the Caricus, held inherited roles in religious ceremonies, especially those related to the Eleusinian mysteries. In this setting, genos symbolized both high status and sacred duties. In early Christian writings, particularly the texts written in the Greek language of that period, genos was used in a spiritual sense. It described groups of people, such as a chosen race, meaning the community of those called by God. Here, genos was applied to a new kind of spiritual family based not on blood, but on shared belief in divine purpose. During the Hellenistic and Roman periods, inscriptions and official records using genos to identify heritage or affiliation. During the Hellenistic and Roman periods, inscriptions and official records used genos to identify heritage or affiliations. It could refer to ethnic background, ancestral origins, or membership in a guild or religious group. In funerary inscriptions, genos often recorded the family origin of the deceased or their connection to a tradition or region. In Greek poetry and drama, such as the works of Homer, Sophocles, and Euripides, genos referred to noble ancestry or heroic lineage. Characters would mention their genos to affirm their honor and legitimate their place in society. In these stories, genos expressed pride, destiny, and duty, linking one's birth to their role in the world. Okay, that one was a little bit hectic. There's some stuff in there that I freaking did read before, but I wanted to go back over it and kind of reread it and put it all in the same text, because last time I really did not have a good chance to go through and cover this stuff. So I wanted to do it again, and just be able to put it out there and everything. So with that, I am going to go ahead and end it. We do have a comment on YouTube. It's from Bearcat. It says, "In this life, man, you talk to your chat." No, this is live stream. Me telling freaking a live stream story, which is perfectly fine. I mean, I don't have to have like people in the chat with me to do a live stream. I really don't understand where people come up with that concept. I've done plenty of live streams on my own. Um, yeah, so yeah, you don't have to have more than one person to do a live stream. You can do a live stream on your own, ladies and gentlemen. Just so you know, um, and that's what I'm doing. I'm putting out my story on the cosmic weave into live stream. So I hope you guys enjoyed. It looks like they are. That is the only comment I've gotten, so I'm good on that. Let's see here. Yeah, I am streaming on Rumble, X, D Live, Twitch, Kick, and YouTube. So if you guys want to check out my content, see what's on there, I do have a channel on Rumble and YouTube for the Wonderful World of Weirdness, as well as having the Wonderful World of Weirdness on YouTube. I've also got Strange Stories on YouTube as well. And I have a group on minds.com for Strange Stories. So you can check out those if you wish to. I do have Wonderful World of Weirdness on those two platforms, but on X, D Live, and Twitch and Kick, I do not have any. That doesn't have the Wonderful World of Weirdness on it. That is just um, my personal accounts that I live stream on. Now on X, I live stream at, or my account is Roger Hanson at ROGLOL1973. On D Live, I am just Roger_Hanson. And on Twitch, I am Infamous 1969. On Kick, I am Roger_Hanson. And of course, on YouTube, I am the Wonderful World of Weirdness at the Wonderful World of Weirdness. And if you want to find strange stories, you can just look down into the suggested channels that I have on my timeline, and it'll show you exactly where that channel is if you want to go check that out. Now on Rumble, I am Roger Hanson at Infamous OG1973. So you can find me at those locations whenever I stream. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, make comments in the comment section. I really do appreciate your feedback. If you send feedback, I will respond to you. I don't respond to spam though. If people are, or if there's bots in the chat, that those get deleted and so forth. But if you are a real person and you want to make a comment, man, I'll respond to it. I love to have conversations down there, So I hope you guys take time to make comments, And Bearcat, I appreciate your comment. Hope to hear a little bit more from you. If you do have anything that you wish to say, make a comment in the comment section. But we are coming to the end of the hour, and I am done with my stream. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you have a good day, good evening, good morning, afternoon, whatever it is. And I'm going to go ahead and end this stream. Thanks for watching.